Ada siapa boleh tolong tekankan? Shoki ke? Okay. Thank you. Okay, so we have finished everything. So today will be our last chapter, standard and burden of proof. This topic, standard and burden of proof, is our last topic because it's a summary of everything we have learned from evidence part 1 until last week. Okay. So we don't learn standard and burden of proof during the first part of the chapter because we don't know what is evident. No point of talking about standard and burden of proof. Okay, so that's why we learn first under evidence part 1 last semester what is evidence, okay, etc. etc. Okay, and for this part 2 mostly about how to authenticate evidence. Okay, now would be the last one, the last chapter. What is the standard of proof? Who bears the burden? Okay, of proof. Should be burden first. First question for the day. What is burden of proof? Apa itu burden of proof? Okay. So the concept burden of proof, or in Latin known as onus probandi, is is the obligation to prove one's allegation which are presented in the legal action. It's a burden of proof. It's a burden, it's a duty, it's a responsibility, it's a task. Okay, for everyone who are involved in legal matter, okay, legals professional, okay, which they must carry out lah. Okay, for civil case, plaintiff and defendants, and for criminal case, we have prosecutor as well as the accused. Okay, so all party has a burden, okay, to prove their case. Okay, when we talk about burden of proof, we refer to section 101 of the Evidence Act. 101 talks about what is burden of proof lah, beban bukti. We mentioned that subsection 1, whoever desire any court to give judgment as to any legal right or liability dependent on the existence of facts which he asserted must prove those facts exist. Barang sesiapa menghendakkan mahkamah memberi kehakiman tentang apa-apa hak atau liability di sisi undang-undang kepada dirinya, okay, dengan bergantung pada adanya fakta-fakta yang tegaskan olehnya, mestilah membuktikan bahawa fakta-fakta itu ada, wujud. Okay, itu dia. Nak buktikan fakta-fakta itu wujud macam mana? Melalui keterangan lah, evidence. Subsection 2. When a person is bound to prove the existence of any facts, it is said that the burden of proof lies on the person. Apabila seseorang itu terikat untuk membuktikan ada suatu fakta, okay, dan dikatakan beban bukti itu terletak kepada orang itu. Important for us to know that when we talk about burden of proof, under this section 101 just now, there are two types of burden of proof. Ada dua jenis burden. Satu burden to bring evidence, another point is would be the burden to convince the court over the evidence we submitted. Okay, no point you give evidence, but the court will not accept it. Okay, that's why there are two burden to submit evidence as well as a burden to, okay, convince the court to accept our evidence. So burden of proof, there are two aspects. So I put it under two category. One is evidential burden, beban keterangan. Another one is a legal burden, beban undang-undang. So we're going to analyze one by one. Okay. You refer to the case of International Times against Leong Ho Yuen, 1980, to Malayan Law Journal, page 86, judgment by Tun Saleh Abbas. For the purpose of this appeal, it is necessary to bear in mind the distinction between the two senses in which the expression burden of proof and onus of proof are being used. Namely, the first sense would be refer to section 101, the burden to establish a case. Okay, and the second sense would be responsibility to adduce evidence. So you bring evidence, that's number one, burden. Number two, okay, burden would be to establish a case. Okay, so in other words, there are two kinds of burden, evidential burden and legal burden. Okay, which one comes first? Should be evidential burden come first because we want to bring evidence. Okay, after you bring evidence, then it will be next stage for you to persuade the court, to convince the court over the evidence you have submitted. Okay, that's how you put it. So far semua okay ke? Dengan suara sikit. Takkan suara. Okay, Usna.
Okay.
Oh, that's good. Riaz, okay, Riaz?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
How's the weather in PJ?
Oh, saya kat nilai, sir.
Nilai pula. How's the weather in Nilai?
Nilai panas terik, sir.
Serik lah. Same here lah in KL also, Wang Selaju. Panas terik kot lah. Bagus lah. Nice weather. Tak nak tanya. I can see the hill. Kalau lah I boleh buat jungle trekking ke apa. Okay. Okay, we go one by one evidential burden beban keterangan. Apa benda tu? Evidential burden is normally known as a lighter burden beban yang ringan, tak berat sangat. Okay, and this kind of burden always shifted from one party to another party Okay, throughout the course of the trial. Okay, what do you mean by evidential burden? As I said, is burden to produce evidence lah. Macam civil case plaintiff defendants. So both party are required to produce their evidence. Okay, why they call it lighter burden? It's supposed to be heavy burden. Okay, because it's not easy to find evidence. Maybe for some people, for some author, regard this kind of burden is easy. It's easy to bring evidence. It's easy to find evidence. It's very easy to find evidence. It's easy to produce evidence, but the only problem is very difficult to convince the court to accept our evidence. So to produce evidence, evidential burden is quite easy lah. Okay, because kita dah learn kan, last semester, what is evidence? Evidence includes basically everything. Okay, so shouldn't be any question on your part lah. Sir, ini boleh jadi evidence ke? Ini boleh jadi evidence? Maknanya something wrong. Okay. As I said last semester, evidence being defined as under section 3, evidence includes. Okay, so boleh jadi evidence ke ni? Of course lah, everything can become evidence. Okay. Itu dia. The only thing is whether it can be accepted by the court. Okay. So come to the second issue, whether it's relevant or not. Section 5 last semester. So this topic, standard and burden of proof, our last topic is a summary of all the topic we have learned since last semester until up to last week. Okay, and this kind of evidential burden, as mentioned here, is always shift between the parties in the course of hearing. Betul lah, macam dalam civil tu kan. Shift. Mula plaintiff, lepas tu defendant. Lepas tu datang balik plaintiff, lepas tu datang balik defendant. Bawa evidence dia. Macam criminal lah. Prosecutor, bring the evidence. Okay. Then the defense bring their evidence to counter argue, to put up a defense. So it's always shifted from one party to another party. Okay, civil court ke, tribunal ke, syariah court ke, sama saja konsep dia. Okay, that's why it's mentioned that this kind of burden is always shifted, berubah-ubah di antara satu parti ke satu parti yang lain. Okay, it's a lighter burden, beban yang ringan. Okay, it's easy to find evidence. Okay, the only thing is whether it's your commitment to find such evidence. Okay, itu dia. Okay, whether you are commit to find evidence or not. Second burden, ini yang susah. Yang tadi tu lighter burden, yang ini bukan lighter burden, ini heavy burden. Why heavy? You can see the photo there I put. There's a big rock being put on the top of the head of the lawyer. Okay, because it's very difficult. Because legal burden, beban undang-undang ni maksud dia, not only you put forth evidence, establish evidence, but you need to convince the court to accept your evidence. Okay, ini yang susah ni. That's time. And it all depends on the case. Civil case dia ada requirement dia, and for criminal case dia pun ada requirement. Sama juga lah dengan syariah court, dengan tribunal sekali. Court of equity, okay, industrial court, okay, tribunal, consumer tribunals, okay, all have their own standard of requirement. Okay, to what extent, okay, you should submit your evidence. Okay. Legal burden, apa maksud dia? It's a heavy burden. It's a burden of persuasion because you persuade who? Persuade the court to accept your evidence. Tadi burden of evidence is to establish a case. Now, legal burden to persuade the court. Merayu kepada mahkamah untuk menerima bukti-bukti yang telah you hidangkan kepada pihak hakim. Itu dia. And this kind of evidence, tadi evidential this burden, tadi yang burden of evidence is always shifted to one party another party. This kind of burden is not shifted. Dia start dekat orang tu je. Macam dalam civil, apa burden dia masing-masing lah. Kalau plaintiff, ini burden dia, masih tak ubah. Kalau defendant, inilah burden dia. Kalau macam criminal, okay, prosecutor, inilah burden awak untuk prove the case. Untuk defense counsel, defense, inilah burden awak. Dia tak ubah, itulah burden dia. Contoh dia macam apa Razi Fajar dulu macam dalam criminal case, burden apa? untuk prosecutor to prove their case against the defendant, what is the burden? What is the quantum of proof?
Beyond reasonable doubt.
Alright. How about if the defense put up a defense? So what's quantum of proof needed to prove their defense?
Balance of probabilities.
Alright. Tak berubah kan?
Tak
Okay. Untuk prosecutor dia beyond reasonable doubt saja. Okay. Selama-lamanya sampai kiamat. Untuk defense, okay, selama-lamanya sampai kiamat, balance of probability. Tak berubah-ubah. Relate juga apa yang kita dah belajar last semester. Ingat tak kalau masa kes Jaya Sena tu, okay? Any problem we talk about evidence or any talk about procedure, we should refer to our statute first. So I give you the case of Jaya Sena against R tu, right? Whereby they put up a defense. This, okay, the only problem with Jaya Sena, the council make a mistake lah. They rely on Wilmington case, English court. English court, of course lah. They share the same burden, okay? But unlike us in Malaysia, we have statute. We mentioned that under section 105, okay, for the burden of okay, for the burden of proof, for the defense, it's not same like prosecutor. It is different. It's just a little bit easier, lighter, which is on balance of probability. Okay, Jaya Sena. Okay, we have discussed this. Alamak, siapa pula yang tekan aku punya control ni? Terpaksa upload balik. Lala, so far ada berapa soalan sementara I upload kali kedua ni? Semua okey ke? Senyap je, 44 orang. Today is our last class meeting ya. Our last meeting ya. So boleh cakap apa-apa je lah. Boleh tanya apa-apa, cakap apa-apa pula. Okay. Cakap apa-apa pun tak berat. Okay. Any question so far? Evidential burden dengan legal burden?
Boleh
okay. Semua okey? Aduh, evidential burden.
Okay, sir.
Legal burden Mana ni? So basically legal burden tu benda is burden of persuasion lah. Okay. So macam dalam civil case tu, you need to persuade the court to the extent on balance of probability lah kan. Dalam bahasa Melayu dia imbangan kebarangkalian. Okay. So dalam kes-kes jenayah pula, BRD lah, beyond reasonable doubt. Di luar keraguan munasabah. Okay. Tapi dalam balance probability ni, dia bergantung pada degree of civil wrong you are doing. The more serious civil wrong you are doing, the more higher is the balance of probability. Okay, the less serious wrong you are doing in civil case, less balance of probability. Dia ada tahap-tahap dia tu. Okay. Kalau beyond reasonable doubt ni tak ada tahap-tahap, itulah dia. Okay. So, this is the meaning of a legal burden lah, beban undang-undang. Okay, next slide. So we finish with the concept of burden of proof. Okay, and now we move into standard and quantum of proof. Dalam bahasa Melayu dia taraf bukti. Bukti standard. Standard pembuktian. Apa benda ni? Okay, so standard pembuktian ni basically is what we have discussed just now lah. BOP and BRD. Balance of probability as well as beyond reasonable doubt. Itu dia. Okay. So most countries in the world, including us, have a two level of quantum of proof, namely balance of probability, the lowest level of proof, okay, used mainly in civil case, and another one would be beyond reasonable doubt, highest level of proof, used mainly in criminal trials. Okay, but some country, all country lah, I don't find any country which use other kind of quantum of proof within their judicial system. Maybe they change their name, okay, but basically whatever they try, whatever modification to the names of the quantum, they have only tried to prove two things lah, either BOP or BRD. Okay, some country use irresistible conclusion test for their quantum. Apa benda tu? Quantum irresistible conclusion test maksudnya beyond reasonable doubt lah. And some country use the word beyond women reasonable test. Okay, woman reasonable test. So what is that? Okay, it's basically BRD also lah, beyond reasonable doubt. Okay, some country use the term to create a probabilities. Benda create probabilities, balance of probabilities lah. Okay. Itu dia. I think if I'm judge also, I intend to create my own terminology. Okay. So we go to one certain kind of area. What are the quantum of proof needed? Nowadays we are talking about election in Sabah whatsoever. So in case there's a offence being committed during election, so what is the quantum of proof needed to prove election offences? We have this Election Offences Act 1954. Okay. So nama pun Election Offences Act, right? Offences. So the quantum of proof must be, kalau offence ni selalu civil atau criminal?
Criminal.
Alright. Kalau criminal maknanya quantum of proof is a criminal lah, which is BRD, beyond reasonable of doubt. It must be criminal standard. You will refer case pada Wong Sing Nang against Tiong Tai King 1996 for MLJ 461 and the case of Pengkalan Kota by-election 1981, 1 MLJ 265. When the case is wholly or substantially on circumstantial evidence. Okay, kalau case tu you hanya guna bahan bukti berdasarkan keadaan je. Tak ada dokumen, tak ada witness, okay, tak ada physical evidence. 100% on circumstantial evidence. Example of circumstantial evidence apa yang kita belajar last semester? Motif. Not motif, motif. Okay, motif. Kalau pakai motif je, sepatu-sepatu, boleh ke? No harm, boleh je. Tapi what is the quantum of proof needed? It's mentioned here the quantum of proof is BRD lah, beyond reasonable doubt. Or some court use the terms irresistibly conclusion test. Okay. You refer pada case Dato' Mokhtar bin Hashim 1983, Two Melayu Law Journal, case of McGreevy against DPP 1973, One Weekly Law Report. Okay, and the case of PP against apa tu, Syed Muhammad Faizal lah bin Syed Ibrahim 2004, 6 MLJ 302. Komputer ni, komputer or the line making problem. Sekejap dia tengah pusing-pusing. Navigate forward. Okay. For contempt of court, menghina mahkamah. Diorang nak wujudkan akta menghina mahkamah hari ni. I tengok parlimen pagi tadi bersidang akta menghina mahkamah. So far kita tak ada akta tau, kita pakai court case je. Okay. So contempt of court is a criminal offence of criminal character. A man may be sent to prison for it. It must be satisfactory proof. To use the time honor phrase, it must be proof beyond reasonable of doubt. Beyond reasonable doubt. You refer pada case Inri Brimble Limited 1970 Chancery, okay, and the case of Lee Lim Huat against Yusuf Han 1997, 2 MLJ 473. Untuk fraud, okay, in the past court argued that decision between civil fraud and criminal fraud cannot be whole. So it's an attempt to distinguish undistinguishable. So before this, the position in court is that it depends on the nature of the fraud. Menipu fraud. Okay. Fraud. Okay. Kalau fraud to civil in nature, then the standard requirement will be balance of probability. Kalau fraud is a criminal in nature, the balance of probability is to prove beyond reasonable doubt. Itu dia. Tapi when it come case of Eric Chan, Tiam Soon against Sarawak Securities Yang Berhad 2004 CLJ 464. Okay, the case of Asian Security Paper Mills Yang Berhad against CGU Insurance 2007 to CLJ Federal Court level, and the case of Yong Tim against Ho Kok, okay, Cheong. Okay. And this is 2000 something. Okay, 7 okay. Federal Court level is mentioned that whether it's civil fraud or criminal fraud, okay, the quantum of proof needed to prove this kind of fraud will be on criminal standard lah, which is beyond reasonable of doubt. Why? Because the court in these cases, in the opinion that it is very difficult to distinguish between civil fraud and criminal fraud. But we have a new development in the case of Sinaya and Sons Siang Berhad against Damai Setia Siang Berhad 2015, 5 MLJ. Page 1, federal court decision which, okay, is a federal court decision is lower the standard of proof in civil fraud claim from beyond reasonable of doubt to a balance of probability. With this decision, the case of Yong Ting just now and the case of Ang Yok Sang have ceased to be good law in Malaysia. Okay, so we are now in line with the same position in England, Australia, Canada, and even Singapore. When talk about standard of proof to prove fraud in civil case, fraud in criminal case still the same, beyond reasonable doubt. But for civil, okay, before this they said it same like criminal, but now by virtue of this case Sinaya, it's no longer the burden, the quantum is no longer same like criminal but only civil, which is balance of probability lah. So I give some cases where the court refer to cases from this jurisdiction, English court, the Canadian court, Australian court, and including Singapore. Okay, so we are now in line with other Commonwealth country lah when it come to the issue of fraud, quantum of proof to prove fraud. Okay. Selain pada fraud, kita ada forgery ke? Forgery bahasa Melayu apa? Riaz, forgery bahasa Melayu apa? Kalau fraud tu macam penipuan kan? Forgery tu apa? Tahu tak? Ha?
Pemalsuan.
Pemalsuan. Yes, correct. Thank you, Riaz. The standard of proof required to be required in the case of forgery, or the fact of such a case as one before the court is not beyond reasonable doubt, but balance of probability. So it's BOP lah. You have the case of UAB, United Asian Bank, against Tai Sun Hang Constructions yang berat 1993, 1 MLJ, page 182. And the case of Syarikat Islamiyah against Bank Bumi Putra Malaysia, Berhad, 1988, 3 MLJ, page 218. And the case of Bonsun Bunyanit against Adona Properties yang Berhad lah, 1997, 3 CLJ, page 17. But the rule might be changed. You need to check it over and over again. So there's no fixed rule forever. Don't get me wrong. So the rule might change. So you need to update yourself lah. Macam case tadi Sinaya dah ada 2015. Tak tahu lah. Tak tahu ada tulis 2020. Nak ubah balik. Okay, you never know. Alibi. If there's an allegation of alibi, okay, the quantum of proof, as I mentioned just now, prosecutor, dia punya quantum of proof is to prove a case on beyond reasonable doubt. However, when the defense counsel has the opportunity to counter argue the allegation, okay, to put a defense, their balance is not same like prosecutor. It is different, which is on BOP lah, balance of probability. Okay, you refer case kepada Dr. Mokhtar Hashim against PP 1983 and section 10T pun, and Evidence Act 1950. So dah ada mention section 103 tu nak refer common law cases for what? There's no reason at all. Okay. How about defense? Self-defense? Nama pun defense. Dah cakap tadi dah. Kalau defense, apa dia punya quantum? Anybody?
Balance of probability, sir.
Yes. Defense kan? Tadi bagi tahu kan case Jayasena tu. Okay. So, the defense, okay, any kind of defense will be BOP lah. And the last one will be matrimonial offences, Domestic Violence Act, DVA, 1984, adultery, cruelty, desertion, or whatever matrimonial offences. So, nama pun offences, so the quantum of proof is lah, beyond reasonable doubt lah. Banyak case, Lim Yung Yin against Gan Kim Bio, okay, Ng Lim, okay, and the case of Wee Hock Gan, okay, against Ching Chit Neo, okay, or you can refer by yourself lah. So we have finished standard and burden of proof. Now we move into the last part lah, before we end up with our law of evidence subject forever. Okay, so we finish standard and burden of proof. Now we move into the last part, prima facie case. What is prima facie case? So I think you have some idea what is a prima facie case because it's been delivered by Mr. Ravindran, Mr. Ravi Niko. Okay. Okay, last time on 23rd July 2020 so 84 orang dia datang kelas ada 95 berapa, okay, 11 orang datang. Okay, so those who have attended, they understand lah what is a prima facie case. Okay, so that's why I bring Mr. Ravi to explain a little bit prima facie case before I explain it in my class. Okay, so I hope you have some idea what I've been given. So why we need to focus on prima facie case? Prima facie case is a very important issue, especially recent days, right? especially when relate to this person punya court case. Okay, last year if you recall, our former prime minister being charged for abuse of power, corruption, apa lagi satu? Money laundering kah? Okay. Itu dia if I'm not mistaken lah. Okay. So when the matter put forward in High Court, okay, before go for the formal proceeding, the court need to know whether there's a prima facie case against the former prime minister or not. So the court say that in, when is it? November, November 26, 16, 6. Okay, there's enough evidence for a prima facie case. So enough evidence means that the former prime minister need to put up a defense lah for the full trial. So dalam kes-kes jenayah saja. Rabi cakap jenayah je kan, tak ada civil. Some country they have civil law, but Malaysia we only have jenayah je untuk proof prima facie case. Okay, when come to civil jenayah, kes jenayah, okay, you have two layer. Okay, you must prove a prima facie case, number one, then you must prove the full case lah against the accused. Itu dia. So the prosecutor managed to prove prima facie case, then the defendants need to put up a defense. Okay, itulah dia, bela diri dalam bahasa Melayu. Buat defense But some country they have civil tau. Okay, not us lah. Some country like US they have civil for civil cases whereby you need to prove prima facie case. Dalam syariah court kita ada prima facie case ada juga. Okay, ada okay, you need to prove a prima facie case juga. Okay, so when a court has declared that you have a prima facie case, does not means that you are guilty. Prima facie case means you have a case, okay, for the accused to put up a defense. It's not that you have a case against the accused, okay. You only have a case for the accused to put up a defense, okay. That's why I wrote an article last time immediately after the former prime minister decision over the issue of prima facie case dipanggil bela diri tidak maksud bersalah. So I dah bagi dah dekat Syamil, so bagi kat you so hopefully dah dapat lah. I wrote this 11 November 2019 in Astro 1 ini So dipanggil bela diri tak bermaksud seseorang itu bersalah. Masih ada the second part of the story, okay, which need to be fulfilled before the person can be found guilty. So in criminal case, the first thing the prosecution has to do is to prove a prima facie case. And if this is proven, then okay, they have to prove their case during the full trial, okay, beyond reasonable doubt. Itu dia. So apa maksud prima facie? Prima facie on the surface of it, on the face of it, on the glance of it. Okay, okay, itu dia. When the prosecution has produced evidence to prove every ingredient of offence, which okay, if the defendant failed to explain, okay, so he will be found guilty lah, okay. Atau which if defendant failed to explain, will be found guilty. Any example lah? Ali was arrested for theft. After police investigation, there was enough evidence to charge Ali in court. Ali decided to claim trial. The prosecution opens up a case, and at the close of their case, the judge decided that there was prima facie case against Ali. Ali is directed to present his defense, either by sworn evidence from the witness stand, where he will be subjected to cross-examination, macam last week kita bincang kan, ataupun unsworn statement from the accused or just remain silent saja. Okay, so dalam kes former prime minister, dia pilih yang satu. Ingat tak? Siapa tahu? Sworn ke, unsworn ke, duduk senyap je. Macam you all senyap je. Saya yang satu. Ingat tak?
Sworn.
Yes, correct. Yes, it's sworn evidence, right? Kenapa? Okay, so sworn evidence, the value is very high lah. Okay, kita dah bincangkan corroboration evidence. Okay, unsworn testimony of a child, sworn testimony of a child, which one is more higher? Sworn testimony lah, because dia ada sumpah. Yang unsworn tu, value dia kurang sikit. Okay, that's why the court insists to have corroboration under section 133 capital A. Kalau you ingat lagi matter of law. At the end of the trial, the judge considered the evidence put forward by the prosecutions and Ali defense lah. The judge decided that Ali defense does not make any sense, and the prosecution has proven beyond reasonable doubt that Ali, okay, has committed the theft lah, and the judge can sentence Ali to jail. And okay, Ali can appeal lah later on if Ali like to appeal. Terpulang pada Ali, okay. So dalam kes ni, Najib, as Ria said just now, opt to give sworn statement in defense. Okay, dia bagi sworn statement. Tapi walaupun bagi sworn statement, kalah juga. Guilty. Okay, means that the sworn testimony is not convincing lah. Okay, to the court. Okay, they fail to prove they fail to create a doubt in that case. So guilty lah. Now it's now in the appeal process, right, to the court of appeal. So we wait and see how the next chapter goes. Okay, court of appeal. Nah, itu dia. Come back to our talk on prima facie case. It will be the judge's duty to decide after the prosecution has finished presenting their case whether or not they have managed to establish a prima Okay, sorry gangguan internet di kawasan rumah I, Wangsa Maju. Aduh, pasir mas lagi kuat. Okay, internet dia lagi kuat pada KL. Okay. If prosecution managed to prove such a case, the court will ask the defendant to present their case or defend themselves. If the prosecution failed to prove their case, the court must immediately acquit the defendants from all the charges. Last question for my subject. Last question. Lepas ni tak ada question lagi dah. Okay. What is the criteria which need to be satisfied for the finding of the prima facie case? Ini yang dibincangkan oleh siapa, Mr. Ravi Niko itu masa talk itu kan. Apa quantum of proof required to prove a prima facie case? Is it balance of probability or beyond reasonable doubt? Cannot be balance of probability lah. Okay, prima facie case dalam case kriminal je. Mana ada? Okay, dalam case civil kat Malaysia ni. Okay, so kalau dalam case criminal means that the quantum of proof is BRD lah. Okay, itu dia. So, last question. Okay, there are different school of thought. Lawyer lah kan. Mesti banyak different school of thought. Okay. So, everybody would like to give their own opinion. Okay. Court to undertake a minimal, dalam case Ho Tua Tau. Ho Tua Tau, 1981 to MLJ. Kalau you ingat lagi apa Mr. Ravi cakap itu. Court to undertake minimal evaluation of evidence to constitute a prima facie case lah. Minimal evaluation lah, tak tinggi sangat. Tapi dalam kes Ko Hichiang against PP 1994 1 MLJ ni pula, the duty of the court at the end of the prosecution case is to undertake not a minimal evaluation of the evidence standard like one being said in Ho Tua Tau HTT case, but a maximum evaluation macam Mr. Ravi cakap itu kan, to determine whether or not the prosecution has proved the case against the accused beyond all reasonable doubt. Dalam kes seorang PP against seorang Cheng Hyong pula, 1998 for Current Law Journal 209, where the court took a maximum evaluation on the evidence but did not associate it with the beyond reasonable of doubt standard. Okay, walaupun the court says a maximum evaluation, it does not mean that it is beyond reasonable of doubt like what being said in Ko Hichang just now. No, it's just a maximum evaluation je. Dia kurang sikit je daripada beyond reasonable of doubt. Tak perlu tinggi sangat. Okay. And this being supported in case of PP against Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim, DSAI, 1999, to Current Law Journal, page 215. Agustin Paul J said that, as he was then, said that, insisted that the case should not be called a reasonable doubt case because the term reasonable doubt only used at the end, at the conclusion of the trial, bukan during a prima facie punya case. Nanti dalam full trial itu baru pakai. Bukan sekarang, bukan prima facie stage. So dalam case Loy Koi Chai pula against PP 2003 1 CLJ, the court state that court shall examine the evidence of the prosecution rigorously and held that the standard to be applied on the evidence was on maximum evaluation. Okay, what is maximum evaluation? You refer to the federal court case of Bala Chandran. Ini yang Mr. Ravi cakap itu. Against PP 2005 to MLJ 301. The federal court avoided from using the term maximum evaluation. Instead, the court used the term positive evaluation. Worth to note that positive evaluation means maximum evaluation. So maximum evaluation means little bit, okay, not to reach to the standard of beyond reasonable of doubt lah. Itu dia. Semua okey ke? This is the summary what I can make lah from what being said by Mr. Ravi during his talk on last month. Semua okay? Sekejap je.
Okay.
Yeah, now. So with that, everybody, we've finished with evidence. Alhamdulillah, we finished with law of evidence subject. Ngam-ngam cepat, sempat. Last week, habis last chapter. So everybody, we have learned everything about evidence. Last semester, we have learned about introduction and historical background evidence, where our evidence come from. How many sections we have? 167. Okay. And we have learned about evidential concept. Every evidence presented must be relevant. Okay. Not relevant, no point. Don't throw away your evidence act. You still need it. Okay. Hearsay evidence. Okay. Illegally obtained evidence. The court is not bothered how the evidence is obtained as long it is relevant to your case. Okay. Kuruma punya case. Don't forget Kuruma. Okay. Hearsay evidence. Okay. It's a piece of evidence, but it's a very weak kind of evidence. Okay. However, there are some circumstances whereby hearsay evidence can be accepted. Dying declaration, res gestae, etc. etc. And relevancy section, we have discussed about this circumstantial evidence, motive, conduct. Okay, itu dia. Motive, conduct. Another one is what? Motive, conduct, preparations. Okay, that sort of things lah. Okay, opportunity to commit crime. Then we have talked about character evidence. Okay, apa tu similar facts evidence lah, ingat tak? Bodman, DBP against apa? Kes apa tu? Lupa. Apa first case of Makin, Bodman and DPP against P. Then we talk about admission and confession. Both admission and confession must be voluntarily. If involuntary, then you cannot accept it. Expert opinion. Okay, section 45. There are 4 areas which the court must rely on the testimony from an expert. Dia tak boleh bagi opinion sendiri. Apa dia? Science and art, handwriting, foreign law, finger impression. Yeah. And beyond that, the court can take judicial notice lah, give his own opinion without relying on expert. Okay. And today, of course, this semester we managed to cover documentary evidence, presumption, corroboration, estoppel, privileges. Okay, 1 month satu-satu cover. Examination of chief, and today will be burden and standard of proof lah. Okay, last tutorial question. Mari kita tengok apa soalan last tutorial question. Kita jawab sekarang. Kita ada banyak masa lagi. The concept burden of proof divided into 2 parts. Examine this further. Apa 2 part tu? Ada siapa boleh jawab?
Legal burden, evidential burden.
Yes, legal burden, evidential burden. Correct. Thank you, Syauqi. So you explain lah what is evidential burden, what is legal burden. And B, anybody kena read B tu, baca je. Tolong baca B. Riaz boleh baca dah for the last time for me. Riaz?
Sure, sir.
Okay, last time lah. Baca.
Yes, sir.
Tak lagi dah. B.
Yes, sir. B. Basir in his evidence in court stated that on 12 February 2020, he returned home after work at 9 p.m. and saw Ahmad running out of his house. Then on checking the house, Basir found a sum of 3,000 ringgit was missing from a cupboard where he keeps his valuables. However, in his police report, Basir stated that on 12 February 2020, when he come home from work at 7 p.m., he saw Ahmad running out of his house. Upon checking his cupboard, he found that a sum of 3,000 ringgit was missing. Due to some differences between the testimony given in court and in police report, will it be possible to impeach the credit of Basir? Analyze the issue.
Dah ke Riaz?
Dah, sir.
Sorry, internet problem tadi
Uh,
Thank you Riaz for reading the question for the last time. Okay. So the question asks whether we can impeach Basir because giving inconsistent statement, right? Dan kat court cakap macam ni, kat police statement dia cakap macam tu. So which one is correct? Okay. Dekat court dia cakap this thing happen at 9 PM, but dalam police statement pula it's happened in 7 PM. The date is okay. The amount missing is still okay. The time period yang wrong. What do you think? Anybody know? Can we impeach just because of this inconsistency?
Yes, sir.
Okay, boleh tak? Can impeach ya? Section berapa? Authority, Hamzah?
Section 155, sir.
Section 155 ya?
Satu.
Satu? Okay. Tapi I give you a case, right? Apa case Mutusami tu? Okay, to prove what is the mean by inconsistency? Inconsistency, it must be something which is serious.
Material.
Okay, it's not a small kind of inconsistency. Bau impeach. It must be a serious kind of inconsistency.
Material inconsistency.
So nak tahu serious ke tak is very subjective. It's up to you. How you going to persuade the court to show that 2 jam beza ni very serious. Terpulanglah pada you. Okay. As long you are argue within ambit of law, it's okay lah. Section 155, right? Last week we have discussed about it. And don't forget to highlight the case of Mutusami against PP lah. So the court might accept it or might reject it. It all depends on you lah. Okay. It must be a very serious inconsistency. A small kind of inconsistency, normally the court will not entertain. Okay. So alamak, buat hal pula. Sorry guys. Susah lah. I rasa sebab ramai sangat pakai kot. Apa ni? Microsoft Team ni. Ini yang jadi macam kalah kabut sikit. Minggu terakhir lah. Maklum lah semuanya buat last minute. Yang jadi mangsa aku. Terpaksa upload lagi sekali. Hai, wasting time. Sorry guys. Ada apa-apa soalan tanya? Apa yang kita bincang tadi?
Doktor,
Ya.
saya nak tanya je. Hari tu kan ada sidang media Datuk Seri Najib dengan Syafiq Abdullah kan? Dan dia masa sidang media tu dia secara terang cakap yang the judge was honest but honestly making mistakes. Adakah statement macam tu satu kesalahan ataupun related to contempt of court ke apa ke? Sebab dia macam publicly dekat media bagi tahu apa kesilapan judges bagi in his opinion lah macam tu.
It's hard to know whether it's contempt of court or not. It's very subjective in nature because currently, Shauki, we don't have specific law regulate contempt of court in Malaysia. We rely so much on common law principle lah. Common law principle tu macam case-case je. So whether it's contempt or not, okay, it's depend on the court to decide lah. Sorry to say. Okay, so sometimes contempt of court is something which if you utter a very harsh word, okay, but if you just expressing your view, okay, you're not happy, okay, and you're using a polite word and you might support with certain argument or evidence, that one normally not considered as a contempt lah. Suppose lah, that would be my view. I'm not so sure about the other people's view. Okay, susah nak cakap. It's very subjective because we don't have a specific law, Shauki, currently. But the things become political, so yang pihak yang tak suka tu, of course lah, will make use of every issue to make sure it is contempt. So depends because it's politik kan, okay. Kalau kita tak senyum kat mahkamah pun dia kata contempt of court. Kenapa awak tak senyum? Oh, awak menghina mahkamah ya? Habis. Okay, bawa demo lagi depan court ke. Kenapa dia tak senyum? Dia sepatutnya senyum. Okay. Begitulah manusia.
Karakter.
Ni macam case review so you buat kan. Itu content ke tu? Sebab you kena bagi opinion, right? Whether you agree or not agree, right? So with our tutorial question. Thank you very much. Ada habis dah. So tak perlu datang kelas saya Khamis ni ya. Dah habis dah. Alah, komputer ni. Dah finish with our tutorial question. Okay, next slide. Okay, which topic to focus for final exam? I think semua dah tahu jawapan kan? Apa jawapan dia? Anybody?
All.
Yes.
All.
Semua.
Yeah.
Semua.
Semua subjek tau. Semua subjek. Bukan evidence saja. Betul. Alah, take home test. Apa nak bising? Take home test. So insyaAllah kita punya evidence top exam will be on 19 and 20 2 hari ya. Make sure you jawab 2 hari ya. Ada 2 soalan je. Tak kalah tak boleh jawab dalam masa 2 hari. Okay. 48 jam So question and answer will be done through goals So please check your goals. Okay. Please tanya soalan apa kau tak ada ke apa. Okay. So tak dapat soalan goals saya hilang. Internet tak bayar bil lagi. Macam-macam. Okay. Komputer saya meletup je. Pum. Komputer kena curi. Okay. So I wish you the best So make sure you dapat jawab soalan yang betul Evidence Boleh bawa evidence tak sir? Tak payahlah tanya. Okay. Aduh. Apa soalan nak tanya? Masa type jawapan tu type betul-betul kalau nak highlight lah. I think you pakai computer type tu dah boleh highlight kan. Okay. Make sure I can read the okay your case lah. Or section ke, provision ke, maxim ke Okay. Itu dia. Tak payahlah bunga tu tak payahlah. Okay. And type nicely lah. Okay. And don't cut and paste lah from my note please. Okay. Use your own words. Okay. Maka tinggi asal sebab dia olah ayat. Olah sikit. Okay. Itu dia. Ada apa-apa soalan ke pasal final exam ni? Semua okay final exam? Okay ke? Semua okay?
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
So lah online kita tak pergi dewan tau. Jangan pergi dewan lah. Nilai. Okay. So I will try my very best to release carry mark result before final exam lah. 70 marks 45 berapa? 45 midterm, 15 assignment dengan 10 lagi tutorial lah. Okay. Participation. Okay, so reminder again Sadri tak tahu dia ada kat sini ke tak. Tolong hantar assignment anda seorang je belum hantar assignment. Okay. Yang lain semua dah hantar. Banyak tu 15 markah Adri. Okay. So 70 per 100 kalau carry mark tu dah dapat 50, maknanya dah pass lah kan. Okay. So sama ada dapat A atau tidak, tu je. Okay, so I just want to say thank you very much for attending for all my talks Semester 1 dan semester 2 Ingat lagi tak Betty apa tu how to communicate as a lawyer soft skill. Then before PKP tu sempat juga kita jemput Merit Peter bagi talk datang polygraph. Then after PKP, new norms, okay? Tuan Fazaluddin and Rabi Niko. Fazaluddin, what is the difference between Evidence Act and Sharia Evidence Act, okay? Enactment. And Rabi Niko will be prima facie case lah, what we've discussed just now. So thank you very much for your participation. And thank you so much. Okay, and this one gambar kenang-kenangan boleh lah Syauqi simpan kenang-kenangan Syauqi dan Riaz boleh frame tau kat rumah. Okay. Tata cara komunikasi peguam. Okay. Famous. Okay. Itulah dia. And thank you very much for attending apa ni special talk delivered by Mr. Ramesh. Ingat lagi tak Ramesh? Okay. Ramesh Ramesh Unlucky Purana Chandran. Examination process of witness on the 4th of December 2020 last year. So hopefully we can invite him again. Nice guy. Okay. Selalu atas WhatsApp guy. So special appreciation to Syami and Syauqi. Syauqi, thank you so much for everything. Deeply appreciate it. for being a wonderful and a very hardworking class monitor. Thank you Syauqi. Tepuk tangan semua untuk Syauqi dan Syami. Wah, macam dalam kelas tak? Thank you everything on boy. Okay, thank you for everything sir. So tak ada lagi dah.
Thanks Rias.
Ha? Apa dia Ashraf? Aduh. Just wondering lah. By the way, who shall appoint as class monitor for next batch? Any idea? Siapa? Ada cadangan?
Fahmi.
Ha? Next semester siapa?
Fahmi.
Hadri sir,
Fahmi.
Hadri.
Siapa?
Hadri.
Hadri? Next semester? Siapa? Syami? Siapa?
Hadri.
Ha? Siapa? Siapa? Anyway, tak tahu nak appoint siapa.
Dah datang dah perempuan tu.
Ha? Perempuan mana? Siapa tu? Siapa cakap? What happened? Auni angkat tangan. Kenapa Auni angkat tangan?
Poin perempuan
Tak
lah
ada.
doktor, bukan
Betul.
satu.
Tertekan? Ada soalan kau ni? Oh Auni, mana awak? Tertekan ke?
Tak ada sir.
Ada.
Tak ada sir. Sorry, unstable connection.
Samalah kita internet problem juga hari ni. Aduh. Tak tahu nak appoint siapa next semester. Asal next semester bulan Oktober dah boleh dah kelas face to face. Okay, so boleh tengok lah siapa yang sesuai kot. Itulah dia. Okay, thank you very much for all the support and cooperation given to me. I deeply appreciate it. So I apologize if anything I said hurt you or whatever it is. Okay. So wish all of you the best of luck for your final exam. I wish all of you the best of luck for your future lah. Okay. Thank you and thank you. Okay. Thank you. Tak lagi evidence. Your evidence. Habis dah.
So much.
You also sir.
Tak pakai lagi. Simpan tu, jangan buang. Main tak pakai CP dengan CPC nanti. Okay. Okay, it's interconnected your subject. Okay. So thank you very much for your all support, cooperation, deeply appreciate it. Okay, just want to advertise. This is my latest textbook publication, Malaysian Legal System, second edition. Current Law Journal publisher, year 2020. Price RM270 tamah. Okay. Asal 270 sir? Dekat 1200 pages. Okay. So yang belakang ni, okay, warna oranye. Okay, so kalau berminat boleh beli okay, kat mana ni sir? Kinokuniya, KLCC. Okay, so ada third chapter pasal CPC dengan CP sekali lah, civil procedure dengan criminal procedure lah, and professional practice. Apa yang you akan belajar next semester. So it's good lah. It's a one-stop center punya book. It's good for you to purchase it. Second edition lah. Okay. First edition dulu I buat 2016. Okay, apa beza first dengan second? Second ni ada new chapters lah. Okay, macam apa tu? Online court. Okay, arbitration process. Apa lagi? The power of Attorney General. Okay, that sort of things. It's not only written by me. It's written by a lot of people, me and my former professor, okay. Siapa lagi? Ketua Hakim Negara pun ada. Bukan Zaki. Siapa tu? Abdul Hamid Muhammad. Okay, CJ. Prof Syam Rahayu pun ada contribute juga, boleh refer. Evidence pun ada juga, boleh refer. Okay, so I think usah pakai penutup juga. Kedai buku pun pakai pelitup muka. Okay. Kalau tak kena saman, kena pakai pelitup muka. Okay. Thank you and stay safe ya. Thank you.
Thank you sir.
Assalamualaikum.
Thank you, sir.
Tak ada lagi lah.
Thank
Sir,
you, sir.
tak ada lagi dah.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir. Thank you
sir.
for everything, sir.
Thank you,
Panjang umur
sir.
tu.
Sorry
Itulah.
for any shortcoming. Madrasah apa tu? We love you, sir.
You too.
Fakrul, off, Fakrul, bising.
Atas bumbung. Sir, jom makan-makan.
Puasa. Okay, bye.
Sir, visit, sir.
Bye.
Bye, sir. Thank you, sir. BJ nangis.
Mandi, bising mandi.